Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Basic Education Board.
Hello viewers, welcome to the TV learning series, and here we are wrapping up with unit 16 combined with 17 like we did last time with the multiple choice section in the previous lesson. So it means that this part is actually 2 of 2 for the assessment. So what do we have today? Structured questions, and the objectives of the lesson are essentially just 2. 1, are you able to make good use of the command terms, the command words in the question? If the question comes with a description or an explanation or accounting or determine, what exactly should you as a candidate respond to appropriately? How is your writing skill like? From the rate of 10 to 1, 10 being highest, 1 being the least, where do you rate yourself in terms of those words? Secondly, are we able to show the clearest possible understanding of the concepts and how we apply these concepts to the topic every time we are answering the questions? So in one short go, that's what we are looking at today. So without any delay, here is your question number 1. Remember, I repeat, before I go to the next slides, I expect that you have your camera or your phone. For every question that passes, take a snapshot. I give you 1 minute to think about the question, and then we can start sharing together how we think the answer should have been placed in terms of the language used, the interpretation of the words, which command words are in the question, how do we differentiate them from the key words as terms in the question that are scientific. So 1, it means we have grammar and the concept within the question. So let's go to the question. Are we there to the question? Right, thank you. So mutations are ultimate source of genetic variation, the differences, and at the same time, very important, they are a weapon, they are a driving force to how life changes. Now they are asking, state, so that's a command word. It's English, it's language. When they say state, exactly what do they want you to give? And they're saying 1. Means if the question is taking 1 mark and you state 3, you do not expect to get 3 scores. You're not telling me for what has been asked. You write more than 1 point, you will not get additional points for that. So they're saying 1 type of environmental factor that may increase. It doesn't mean that all the time that environmental factor will bring about the chances for genes, for the DNA to change. So what do you think? They're saying state 1, but can we have more than 1 answer for that? That for us to have genetic variation and also life to evolve, to keep changing, definitely a mutation has to take place. But let's remind ourselves that these mutations must be cumulative, 1 after another 1. So not 1 mutation, not 2 mutations can be the real cause for differences. We must have a lot of small additional changes to the gene for us to realize that, oh, life has changed. Oh, life has become different. So what do we have? 1, irradiation. Was it part of what you were thinking about? And when we say radiation, what exactly do we mean? Sun rays, atomic explosions, exposure to radioactive isotopes? What about in the hospitals, in the labs? When you go for X-ray, are you exposed to radiations? Those are the things we need to start thinking about. Way back in time when we were little, they used to tell us that, okay, any person who goes to an operating room, a theater in the hospital, the lifespan is cut down by 3 years. From the time I was 3 up to when I started studying high school and I was able to understand the working and the mechanisms of hospital labs and these equipments, until then, I knew you go to an X-ray room, your lifespan is cut short. You go to an operating theater, your lifespan is cut short. Is it the same with you? When you go for cancer treatment and you're fired with these rays to kill the cells, the question is, how many is it targeting and which ones are the target and which ones can end up getting destroyed because of these radiations? Is there some way we actually change? What about the sun rays? Sunglasses. Sun lotions. All those. What are you trying to avoid? What are you trying to run away from? The second, we are looking at chemicals. When we talk of chemical mutagens, or you write carcinogens, or viruses, or cigarette smoke. Okay, babandi bakunda kubutumura. Mukomeze mubutumure, uzabatumura. What are you looking for in a cigarette? Urumogi murarushaka mwiki. Every time you smoke, so now go and start doing the calculation and make research. The number of sticks of cigarettes you take in a day, how do you equate them to your reduction in lifespan? What substances are within the cigarette smoke that might cause chances for you to have lung cancer? Now, the slashes I've tried to put here would mean that any one of these will score you 1 point. These are not 6 points. They are all the same. Now, substances have caused these genes to change. But in which ways are these genes changing? Which takes us to the next question. Types of gene mutations. Which ones do you remember? You've done this before. This is your 3rd term. We are wrapping up the last units. Can you use this as review? When we have these nucleoside bases rearranging and we start swapping them, did we know that swapping one base for the other actually changes the information? Changes what the gene would actually instruct. Which takes us to this. We can have base substitution. That's one. Or we insert another base. Or we delete it. Or we move a whole section of bases, nucleotide bases, a whole section of the gene to a new position, frame shift. You find that half of your leg has gone to the chest and a section of the chest has gone to the leg. You're shifting. Or some ribs are missing and you still remain with your chest. Or there is an additional rib amongst the ribs you have. Or rib number 5 has gone to rib number 7 and vice versa. You should be able to remember these things because we are just reviewing. And they're saying identify one. So these are 4, as you can check on the slide. But anyone would go for one mark we are looking for. Because they're saying identify, give the name of a form of a mutation. If we say mutation is a change, irreversible, sudden, in the nucleotide sequence in the DNA. This is where we are. Substitution of bases, A for T, G for C, and stuff like that. Excuse me. The next part. Now, this one, I want to give you time to look at the slide, and you have your 2 minutes reading the slide very, very carefully. And guess where it's taking us? Research skills. How do ideas come into theories? How do you bubble your head and cook it up until a statement comes out and is scientifically correct and accepted conventionally? All right, so for you, the hairdressers now, if you're at home, you're able to follow, and you're in a salon, do you think this type of question makes sense to you? If you're working in factories and you want to start making shampoos for hair, what is your target? Make hair look nice or kill the germs in hair? So, to the slide. Let's go to the slide, everyone. Can we go to the slide? Thank you. So, let's read the question together. On the count from 3 to 0. 0. Let's go. Some lice live in human hair. Oh, okay. How many times do you wash your head? And feed on blood. So, they are parasites. Shampoos that kill lice have been available for many years. Oh, okay. Different names, different brands, different colors. But some lice are now resistant to those shampoos. Okay, ever walked in the bus and someone sees lice moving over off your head to your shoulders? How embarrassing could that be? The good news is that we have good personal hygiene, and so something of the sort never happens. So there are 2 possible hypotheses for this, for the resistance. 1, hypothesis A, that resistant strains of lice were present in the population. Okay. So the same population that has been using shampoos, you ladies going to a salon, and men, everyone is now using shampoo. Use soap, it can be enough. Non-resistant lice died with increased use of anti-lice or anti-lice shampoo, and resistant lice survived to produce. Wow, I love that. You pump your head with shampoo. The next day you start scratching your head. And then they start spreading over. Hypothesis B, another most likely thinking of what possibly could be given as a reason as to why they have become resistant to those shampoos. 1, B, we go back to the slide. We are still reading. Where are you going? Back to the slide. That the exposure to anti-lice shampoo caused mutations for resistance to shampoo, and this resistance is passed on to the offspring. I love that. They reproduce. After experiencing mutations, and if these are inheritable, they become part of the gametes, and they are passed on as resistant strains. Now the question should be, acquired or inherited? And 2, if they are heritable, passed on to the next generation, does that mean that the next generation of these lice are actually resistant? So now over to you. What do you think would be the best explanation? Let's check. Discuss which hypothesis is a better one for the theory of evolution by natural selection. Wow! Theory of evolution. New life forms. Question. Is God still creating others? Did God create and then that was over? Could he have put in a mechanism on earth that is able to keep giving us a new life form? So for any that we give, remember this is a discussion. Try to figure out which one do you think is a better explanation to this hypothesis. This thinking that, oh, you know what? They mutated and then they started producing, and after the mutation, maybe they started releasing chemicals from protein synthesis trying to break down the shampoo you put in the head so they did not die. Another one says, resistant strains were already present. That's why the shampoo didn't work. So, what's your goal? I wish you were there to give me feedback right away so that I can see it now, so that it is a two-way. So look at that. Which would you go for and why? So again, take your time and read the slide. Why would we go for A instead of B? The scientists would go for hypothesis A because mutations are random, yes. So they are not predetermined. They happen anywhere, anytime, boom. And would reject B, reason being, acquired characteristics during a lifetime of an individual are not heritable. Okay? They are not part of evolution by natural selection. And they also say, you know what? It is also possible that these mutations that do take place, not all of them are heritable. A change in my skin pigmentation due to a change in the DNA of the cells of the skin is not at all related to gamete formation that I can pass them on to the next generation via gametes. The resistance, mutations would be present in a population initially and not caused by the shampoo, as hypothesis B states. Okay. Both hypotheses include differences, variations in the population of lice. Resistant or non-resistant. They are already differences. In our hypothesis, differences are indicated. So these variations at the same time can act as a tool for natural selection. Variation is important. If natural selection is to take place, then yeah, you know what? We must have differences. And F, that the frequency of the best adapted would increase and these individuals would reproduce or pass on to the next generation. What does that mean? That the resistant population will increase, which again takes us back to A. That's it. Ideas, thinking, finding out reasons as to why certain phenomena would appear the way we see them, we need to get back and check. Okay, organisms saw these numbers, organisms saw and saw these numbers fall. Then out of nowhere, they rise again. What has happened if the same thing that was killing them is still present and they still are the same? Let's rush to the next question. 2 causes of variation within a gene pool. It's not a swimming pool. A collection of all forms of genes. Recessive, dominant, mutated ones, all that. Where are the differences coming from the genes? 1, sexual reproduction. We talk of sexual reproduction, we are embedding random fertilization, and they all come as a result of meiosis. So it means you as a candidate, writing these three as separate points does not give you 3 scores. Stop duplicating work, because you're going to continue writing the same thing over and over again. Can we have another reason for the differences? Another cause? Yeah, there must be. Mutations, like we just talked about. Change the genes, change protein synthesis, change the phenotype, and so the structure. The other one, again, if we already have the differences, how do they contribute to evolution? When we leave nature to dictate where life heads. I go over again. We want a brief description of how the differences can help the process of evolution through natural selection. 1, we need to first understand what variation is, differences, right? So in your description, therefore, we are a step-by-step process of what actually happens when these differences are bringing about a difference in life as evolution, new life forms. What else do we have? Struggle to compete. Even you at home, hari abarya neza, abandi bakarya bihuta, abandi bakagira umururumba, sinzi icyo ari cyo. By the time you say you're still struggling in bed and you've not woken up, food is finished. If you cannot adjust your life, you're kicked out. What am I trying to say here? You define your appetites. You define the way you cool tea in the mouth. You define the way murya inyama zifite amagufa n'izitafite amagufa. Niba utegereje iroti, ukaba nayo, uratashe. So in this struggle or competition to survive, we talked about these things. The amount of food that is available, compete for space, compete for mate, and all that. What else do we have? Okay. Abo mururumba nyine, they have that advantage. They will eat so quickly. They have freezers in the mouth. A cup of tea, very hot, just from the pan, 1 second. Mommy, I want more. Better advantageous characteristics. Now you can imagine if such a child grew up and those features are embedded in the genes, producing children who eat now, this time, much more than the parents. You're finished. They have greater chance to survive. They are able to grow, reach reproductive age, and produce better than others. At the end of the day, the ones that we are looking at as favorable areas, the good ones, the advantageous ones, which are inherited into the next generation. So you have better and better and better offsprings passed on to the next. The least and least and least poorly designed with poor features get kicked out. So nature is choosing. The last question almost. What do we think if we are to form new species we need? If we are to have other human-like people, maybe 1 million years from now? What is needed? That these human-like people cannot produce with us anymore. Then that means that we are now 2 different categories of people. I would use the word. 1, separate people. Separate the species. Separate the pool. Certain category of people with certain genes in one area and another one in another area. The question is where they now get separate. Say, for instance, out of nowhere, Nyabugogo has disconnected us. Chimihurura completely away from Nemo Kigali harya cyangwa ni Mugasati. Ugana hirya mu Bisheke. Or Musanze is completely disconnected from Kigali. The question is going to be, for how long shall we never see our relatives? Are we going to continue eating the same foods? Are we exposed to the same environment? If it is hot or cold, are we exposed to the same environmental conditions? Can these environmental conditions have a direct impact on our genes? So when we talk of splitting separate populations, we are now looking at geographical barriers. Out of nowhere, Igishanga, boom, full stop. You're there, far east, stay there forever. Far north, stay there forever. What do we have? Reproductive isolation can as well come in. If our sex organs are unable to orient into each other effectively, the positioning, then the chances are we are now new species because we are not in position to continue to interbreed. And next, you need to remember this. Failure to interbreed in a population that has been separate means that we are now new species. So what does that mean? When we say lack of interbreeding after speciation and lack of interbreeding between separate populations are two separate scientific statements. Look at them again. Separate populations and lack of interbreeding after speciation are different. So check that. Very strong scientific sentence. And can also be temporal, behavior, geographical isolation. All these can bring about new species to form. So these can be like the small engines behind formation of new organisms as new species. Natural selection or selective pressures can as well come in. Then we go to the process of adaptive radiation. Get adapted and radiate. So we differ because of the adaptive features we have. So we have one, ancestral species occupying a new environment, and two, different members of species exposed to different selection pressures. All right, cows, goats, sheep, and others, if the selection pressure in a forest where they are all living, the deers, the lions, and antelopes and stuff, if the pressures are not the same, then they will not be adapted in the same way. Each will get adapted taking a different course. That's why I say they radiate, they spread out, having different features because the environment they're exposed to is slightly different. One succumbs to a certain pressure than the other, all differently. Giving rise to new species that share common structures and adapted to new environments. Examples, we have homology, homologous structures, and also analogous, which does not come up. So with that, we come to the end of this session in which we have been able to look at these terminologies, the way they are used, and the right way to put these answers. Thank you so much for today, and see you another time. Bye.